The Huddle Breakdown is back for a new season and a call here, and I'm delighted to say that Alan Morrison has been signed up for another year. It took a few weeks of negotiations, and Juco James, after his holiday, a holiday to match that of Jota, he is signed up for another season as well. So we are going to get into the preseason chat, the transfers chat, and a lot more in the Huddle Breakdown just after this. This episode of the Huddle Breakdown is brought to you in association with the OneFootball app, your one-stop shop for all your football goodness. The OneFootball app is the best football app on the market right now. You can get your fixtures, your results, live scores, transfer news, squad updates, everything that you need on the team that you support is available now in the OneFootball app. The OneFootball app, you can subscribe to the team you support, and all of the stuff that you need on that team is available all in the one spot, and it's all completely free as well. So download the OneFootball app now using the link in the description below. Not only are you supporting the channel, supporting the Huddle Breakdown, you're also getting a top-notch football app as well. So use the link in the description below to download the OneFootball app now. So we are back for another season, and as you can tell, we are as smooth as always with that infomercial that came through there, with briefly coming back to my face before we finally got into the intro here. But as I said in the actual intro of the show, Juco James is back for another season, season 3 of the Huddle Breakdown. How are you getting on?
Good. I other than having this hard, it's hard enough for a guy like me with the ladies, and then when you get a herpes thing growing on your lip, makes you even more revolting. I mean, just the word herpes, right? Just disgusting. So outside of that, I'm doing okay.
Just watching all these people turn off, like the viewer numbers.
Right.
Just go,
more so, I'm shocked by how much wine you've apparently been drinking while in Europe that you've had to sell out to get a sponsor for the channel. I mean, is this not a major problem that you have a wine consumption issue that much that you need to get a sponsor?
No, it's not so much the wine that is dragging out all the money from this channel. It's actually the man who is also signed up for another year with the Huddle Breakdown, and that's the man to your left on the channel for me, and that is Alan Morrison, aka Celtic by Numbers, doing so much content over the off season that I didn't know if he took a break at all. Alan, how are you getting on?
Yeah, I've got that James McCarthy like contract in my back pocket, and I expect to be contributing about as much as James McCarthy will as well. So yeah, over to you. I'm just going to be kicking back and taking it easy.
Well, I can assure you I'll be using you more than Celtic will be probably using James McCarthy this season. But look, there's so much to get into over the next hour or so that we're probably not going to get to do it all, but we'll try fit in some preseason chat with the transfer chat and get some of the questions as well that were sent in before the show started. So we'll start off with the game today. So it was Celtic 4, Baník of Czech Republic 2, O'Reilly, Abada, Giakoumakis and Kyogo all on the score sheet. And it was, Alan, probably the closest that we've seen to a starting 11 as you will during the normal season. It was packed full of first team players. There probably wasn't any surprises in the team at all. You watched this game, suppose. I didn't get to see the game, but I was following it along on Twitter. What were some of the talking points that you would take from it?
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly, if you look at this game and the game in midweek against, on the weekend against Rapid Vienna, is to say that both of those clubs are way down the road of their pre-season. So I think Rapid's first competitive game is on Friday, and I think the Celtic game may have been the last or next to last. And it was a really, really competitive game. Quite a very well played, quite intense game. And similarly, tonight this was a big occasion for Baník. It's a 100-year anniversary, and they were well up for it. They got an early goal. They put Celtic under some pressure. They launched loads of crosses into the box. I think it's a feature of both games that Celtic have not dealt with that very well, to be honest. But I think the context that we have to understand is that this is Celtic's third game, and certainly some of the players like Juranovic, the ones that have been on international duty, Jota even, look way short of where they're going to be when the season actually starts. Whereas the teams that we've been playing are pretty close to competitive action. So I think you've got to look at it in that context. And if you do look at it in that context, I think Celtic could be pleased with both workouts, especially in the number of goals that they're scoring. There's been issues at the other end for sure. And actually, I think especially in the Rapid game, what impressed me, or what occurred to me really, was that Celtic were actually pretty poor on the ball. And the passing, and the timing and the passing and the movement just wasn't quite there. But off the ball was where I think they were trying to do all of their work in terms of the things they'd been focusing on in the camp. And it was the trying to get more coordination around the pressing, trying to respond in a consistent way to the different triggers that was really a standout for me, especially in the Rapid game. It didn't always work because it's practice, and it's early days. But I can't remember that early game. There's at least 3 or 4 goals scored against the Vienna Victoria side from transition, and there was a couple of goals I think from the Vienna game that were scored on transition. So this is something that Celtic have been really, really working on, I think, and that was the piece that I think that came out for me more than anything, and just the fact that especially today, the difference between different groups of the players, between where they are in terms of their pre-seasons. I say Jota looked miles off it. Juranovic looked way off it. Even Carter Vickers looked a bit sluggy. Even McGregor, his passing wasn't quite on point. But some other players like Ralston, he just kind of hit it hard. He just kept going for it. Abada looked really quick and lively. Giakoumakis and Kyogo both looked really sharp. So, pluses and minuses. I wouldn't say minuses. I just think it's the fact that we're not at the point where everyone's coming to a boil yet. We're still getting everyone up to speed, really. So, I don't want to be too harsh.
Yeah, and speaking as somebody who has a similar body type and who has probably put on a couple of stone in wine and cheese over the last two months or so, I would say Anthony Ralston's probably one of those people that needs to keep himself in really good nick all the time. Otherwise, 3 weeks down the road, he will be a couple of pounds heavier than he would be if he kept it going. James, I remember back to last preseason where it was our kind of first time covering preseason. It was the second season of the Huddle Breakdown, and Celtic were playing teams with they had Urquidi had just come in, Shaw had just come into midfield. Dembele was playing out in the right wing, and we were genuinely here questioning whether or not this would be Celtic's starting lineup. So, considering that and considering where we are now, your thoughts on preseason and how far we actually are along in comparison to where we were last season, even?
Oh yeah, it's apples and oranges, night and day. The fact that we got the big transfers in January, hugely helpful. You can see O'Reilly and Maeda, and even though Hatate, I don't know if he picked up an injury or knock or something, but not being in the squad today. But having a full preseason and then having the luxury of having these, to some of the points that Alan's pointing out, and I agree with pretty much everything he said, that we don't have to worry about playing a Midtjylland like this week or whatever it would be. Given the compressed calendar, the way it unfolds now with the poor international players that are playing into mid to late June now, the way they pummel these poor guys. So guys like McGregor basically getting 2 weeks off or maybe, and then having to go right back at it. So it's nice to have that period where, the ramping up of the competition, even in the league, it's, not going to be crazy in August before we start going into the Champions League campaign. So that run up, I think, is helpful in the fact that we're, to your point, and I think the squad far more settled and with just a much higher tier of player and talent and depth. That's the other key, is that the depth is there to a degree now, with some, exceptions. But that's why the window's still open, and hopefully there's still 2 or 3 more to come in.
Yeah, and there's a big link with a current PSG player today. We'll cover that in just a brief moment. But before we get into the transfers, and the preseason was obviously an opportunity to get a couple of new players into the team. You know, you had Boston Lawwell coming in as centre back, and you're seeing younger lads, Mikey Johnson, try to prove himself once again. But we're also seeing a coaching staff member step up to the plate, and it's sort of his opportunity to integrate himself in, and that is Harry Kewell. We haven't had an opportunity to chat about Harry Kewell joining the coaching staff yet, Alan, but very vocal is probably the first thing that you're taking from his first 3 games as a coaching member of this staff.
Yeah, I mean, top player, Harry Kewell in his day, an attacking left winger, not dissimilar to you, Jota, probably a little bit more of a forward than a winger. Maybe he scored quite a few goals. Quite an abrasive character, I would say, from what I can tell. And he's dipped his toe in management with kind of mixed success, it has to be said. Yeah. And listen, when you're managing, especially in the English lower leagues, there's all sorts of contextualization you need to put around a lot of these jobs. But he's trying to find his feet in the game in terms of management and coaching. So a very interesting move. I think what Ange said was, he doesn't want to stand still. He wants to keep freshening things up. So somebody who's perhaps because you can imagine with the existing coaching staff, John Kennedy, Strachan, even McManus, maybe to a lesser extent, that seemed quite nice, maybe, and maybe getting somebody in who's got a little bit more of an edge, a little bit more abrasive, a slightly different perspective, maybe a bit more challenging for the players. I think is maybe the thinking here, possibly, which is not a bad thing.
Well, on that, look, it's not always the case in terms of coaching staff, but if you look through the ranks of the Celtic coaching staff, Harry Kewell is someone that will definitely garner respect from the players because of what he did as a player himself and how good he was himself, and especially for attackers. I'm not saying that good player automatically equals good coach, because we've seen a lot of cases where it does not, but I do think he's someone that, or you go in and immediately he garners your respect regardless of what you think of his coaching standards immediately.
Yeah, I'd agree. The other thing is it's just a numbers thing, right? So I think Alan and I have discussed this before. I mean, in the modern game, staff sizes have expanded to focus on certain elements of the game that probably didn't get the level of attention that they do now. Things like set piece coaches and throw in coaches and, so all of these different specializations. So just adding numbers, I think, is a positive sign in and of itself. So again, kind of more towards, I think, Ange having more power and say in the setup. So yeah, I think that's probably the most encouraging part that I take away from it.
Yeah, it was also one of the frustrations of many Celtic fans, including myself, I will say, that Ange came in and didn't get to choose many of his staff and was stuck with coaches who were part of a failed system as much as Mr. Neil Francis Lennon was. So look, we'll see how Harry Kewell gets on. Again, like you said, Alan, he does have a mixed bag in terms of his coaching so far, but he did go into some pretty difficult situations as well. So I guess he's not afraid of a challenge. So hopefully it will be a good addition to the coaching panel.
I think I disagree slightly. I'm not sure Ange didn't have the ability to change the coaching staff had he wanted to. I think he chose not to. I think he realised that there was so much change on the playing side that there was only so many things that you could address in the time that you had, and it was really getting a competitive team on the pitch was his priority. Sorting that out, because not only did he inherit all the coaching staff, he actually inherited a lot of players that either wanted to leave or who were brought in before he was really the one leading the recruitment drive. With likes of Scales and McCarthy, I think we've talked about, were really not Ange signings, but probably somebody trying to help him out by getting bodies in because the squad was so low on numbers. So I think he chose not to really. I think he gave everyone the opportunity to impress them as well as the players.
Yeah, well, they certainly did that last season, so we'll see if they can do the same again this season. But speaking of players, we're deep into transfer season at the minute, transfer fever at the minute. It's starting to hype up a little bit more over the last couple of weeks. It went a little bit dark for a week or so since Celtic confirmed the signing of Jota, which was the question on everybody's mind: was he or was he not going to sign? But eventually, Celtic have confirmed Jota a good few weeks ago at this point. So, just in terms of our transfer situation going out of Celtic, or have players who have already left, Near Beaton has left, Tom Rogic has left, Liam Scales, R.I.P. in peace to Liam Scales' Celtic career, but he's moved on to Aberdeen on loan at least, so we'll wait and see what he does there. Sorrow has left, Barkas has left, Dembele has gone, Luke O'Connell has gone, Montgomery and Bolingoli have also left. So, the left back position is definitely somewhere where we seem to be happy enough with the players at the club. Coming in is Jota, obviously. Carter Vickers coming in as a permanent signing. Alexandro Bernabe coming in as a left back from Llanos in the South American leagues, and Siegrist coming in as a backup goalkeeper for Joe Hart. Very interesting so far. We will get your thoughts on that so far and what Celtic have done. But today, Alan and James, we've had a big link with a player from PSG, Edouard Michut, a young midfielder. He's fallen.
Aren't you in France right now?
Yeah,
I am.
On his doorstep.
Can't you say that better? That was horrible.
I'm the man on the ground.
Edouard Michut or something?
Michut.
Can you pretend?
Michut.
Michut.
Yeah.
Edouard
Michut. So he's a young 19-year-old midfielder for PSG. He has fallen out with the club over missing a meeting or missing some sort of scheduled something that he was supposed to be at. He's fallen out with the club. He wants to play more. Doesn't seem to be in the plans of their new manager. And Celtic are reported to be linked with him for a $2 million move fee, which seems quite low here, James, in my opinion, but probably a steal.
It would appear so if that's the number. Again, without knowing the context of what has gone on, I think from what I've been able to find in public sources, his contract goes for another 3 years. So the idea that a club would, kind of take a rock bottom value. I mean, this is a guy who's gotten time at age 19 at PSG, right? So just that alone, that profile, he hasn't played a lot, but that's a pretty significant level of achievement at that age. So, for him to go for that kind of number, something's not adding up there to me, given the contract length, given the profile of the player. So, even if things went horribly wrong, meaning that this guy has burned bridges so bad that they're like, get this guy the hell out of here, that still seems awful low to me. But again, who knows? It's just there's something not adding up in the equation.
Yeah, it does seem dangerously low. However, there is the potential that, like for Benfica's case, for example, with Jota, that staff members now are apparently reeling at the fact that they allowed Jota to be labelled at that price for Celtic to buy him on their loan to buy option because they undervalued him. It would have to be one hell of a strop, Alan, for a young player like this to go from a club like PSG for 2.5 million, unless he threw the strop of all strops.
Yeah, and listen, just based on the articles that are in the public domain, it sounds like he was assigned to the youth team for the start of season and wasn't part of the first team squad.
Yeah.
There was then a meeting to sort of discuss that, which he never turned up to, and then he was sort of disciplined the next day. Sorry about that. Disciplined the next day. He believes he should be part of the first team squad, and based on the fact he's only had 183 minutes. He's made 6 or 7 appearances, not adding up to too much. I think 2 starts in French Cup matches. So probably a little bit early to be playing Billy Big Bollocks, but on the other hand, at 19, a little bit like Matt O'Reilly. And maybe Matt O'Reilly decided that he wanted to be a first team player, and he was prepared to walk away from a lucrative contract. I know Fulham's not quite PSG, but still, if you're a young player, to walk away and say, I'm going to prove myself in the first team, and he went to MK Dons, and you might argue that going from Fulham to MK Dons is a bit like going from PSG to Celtic in terms of just sheer monetary differential there. Maybe it's the same kind of attitude, really, of just him knowing in his own mind that he's ready and wants to prove himself. There's very little public data on him. As I say, 183 minutes. There's a video clip of one of the cup ties. I think there's some really obvious talent there. You don't need to watch hours and hours of him to see, that you've got a heads-up player who seems to have more time on the ball than others around him, who plays seemingly very simple but very, very dangerous passes forward, but who's also, despite his quite slight frame, was able to, win a lot of challenges just by good body strength, good positioning, good anticipation. Listen, 183 minutes is nothing. I always say, 900 minutes is the minimum to start, really getting a feel for a player. But there are some key things, like if you put sort of scouting head on, things like first touch, like balance, like core strength, that I personally always look for first. And it appeared that he's got those things in abundance. And then you add on the sort of progressive passing element to it. Now, clearly, there's so many other things you need to look at and what have you. The thing that amused me and that I alluded to on Twitter, which caused a few people to get lit up, which is always funny, is that in the video clip, he's actually playing against Van, I think it is, and he's playing in central midfield with Marco Verratti, and Marco Verratti is an absolutely wonderful player. And on at least 3 occasions in this short video, and it might be more, the commentator mentions Verratti's name when it's actually Michut that's got the ball, because he's so similar in terms of the way he looks and just the way he moves and his actions. So I said he looks a bit and he plays a bit like Verratti. Of course, that triggered quite a lot of people. You're saying he's like Verratti. You're mental, and all sort of thing. It's like brilliant. I didn't actually say that. If you read very carefully what I did say, but no, listen. On early looking, he looks like he's got some real good raw materials, right? He's a player who Barcelona, Juventus, Manchester City have tried to get him before he signed his pro contract at PSG. Seville were willing to pay, apparently allegedly willing to pay 6-8 million for him last season. So this is somebody who's well known, right? He's not a secret. This is a kid that's been very talented. Now, how good he actually turns out to be, we don't know, because it's 183 minutes. That's what it is. So it would be a kind of risk in a sense, but if it's a £2 million risk, it's a very interesting piece. But what I would say is, based on what I've just said, if he did come to Celtic, he won't be coming as a project. He won't be coming to play in the Lowland League. He'll be coming to be in the first team.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. My skepticism on it is the price. I think because he's got it's about 1,300 minutes, including like under 19s and stuff of data in Wise. Yeah, I mean it's not even worth looking at that closely. But I looked at some of his clips, not assembled clips, but some specific event type of clips, and I agree. I mean, it's pretty clear right away that he's at a certain echelon of quality and talent. So again, I go back. If I think I saw if Sevilla was looking at 8 million last year, as Alan said, euros, that is. I'm not sure how, even if he's had a huff, that his value would get cut by 70%, given the fact that, again, he's under 3 more years of contract. So there might be some kind of contract variable here that we don't know about. There might be something else going on. It's just, that number seems odd to me relative to all of the inputs and the profile. But hopefully, I mean, again, if we get him for 2 million, I mean, it would be like, I joked on Twitter, inject that into my vein. I mean, that's that would be like theft, I think. So be wonderful if that's the case.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see who his management team are, because Celtic have previously bought players from PSG. Timothy Weah, obviously Edouard came from PSG as well. Maybe it's a little bit of political play here that they sounded it out or put this out to the media that a team, it's not out of the ordinary that Celtic might go for a player like this. And suddenly, you have 5 or 6 other clubs scrambling to get his signature for a little bit more. So
Well, so Enda, I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. But what got me? The only reason, like, I don't normally jump onto rumors on Twitter. I just can't be bothered. I've got enough time, frankly. The only reason that I jumped onto this one was because Fabrizio Romano and Anthony Joseph almost simultaneously broke this, and they are very, very good, well-connected people.
Yeah.
That's the reason that I got excited about it. It was because of who was, and it sounded like that from what they were saying that it was actually quite a way down the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the meeting that Michut missed was on the 6th of July. His disciplinary meeting was on the 7th of July. If things are way down the road, it doesn't mean that means that they've not been talking like today or yesterday. They've been talking for a number of days, which means as soon as that relationship broke down, Celtic were in there. Now that is a sea change. That's a sea change for how Celtic are doing business. Somebody somehow has got good intelligence and good information. I'll not mention the city group or anything like that, but I'm sure that's possibly got something to do. A cynic might suggest.
And I can see the attraction from his perspective, from the player's perspective. I mean, given his age, given Celtic guaranteed Champions League, and his level of quality and talent that it looks apparent, you would think he'd be coming in as a starter or at least a significant first team player. And at his age, to be able to do that at a club like Celtic could be really appealing. And again, as we look to kind of get on par with the in player development with the Salzburgs and the Benficas and the Portos and the Ajaxes, they regularly play players of this profile. So that all makes sense. The party that doesn't make sense to me is PSG.
Yeah, but listen, if he wants to play first team football realistically, right? He's not going to go. It's not that he's not going to go to even a top 5 team in the top 5 leagues. He's not going to go to a middle table team in the top 5 leagues. He's not going to go to Aston Villa or Valencia, let's say, right, and walk into their first team. They're just not going to take the risk. They can't, right?
Yep.
I even read a piece on Seville, and the Seville were saying, yeah, they were looking at him and they're interested in him, but he would be what they call a medium-term project, right? And that doesn't sound like what he wants. He wants first-team football. So where's he going to go to get first-team football and at a club of status and be playing European and Champions League football? So that bit, I agree with James. All adds up, other than the price seems a bit odd.
Mm-hmm. You've sold me. We'll wait and see.
Now work on your French, will you?
Michut. Edouard Michut. Yeah. So look, we put out a tweet earlier on the Huddle Breakdown Twitter account, just asking people, okay, so here's the transfer situation so far. Here's who we sold. Here's who we've got, and how do you feel about the transfer season or the transfer window so far for Celtic? And majority of people were quite pleased, quite happy with how Celtic have gone about business. Some people are saying, there's obvious positions that we still need to improve on. In terms of the general business and the way that we've done it, I mean, I looked at this a couple of weeks ago. If Celtic this was last year, Celtic had just signed Urgide and Shaw, and Starfelt came in the day after our second leg of the Champions League qualifiers. This year, Celtic have signed, Jota on permanent basis, Cameron Carter-Vickers on a permanent basis, Bernabe, who looks like he might be pressing for a first-team place on a permanent basis, and a backup goalkeeper in Benjamin Seacrest, all before the end of July, all well before Celtic would be playing a Champions League qualifier. If they were in the qualifiers this year, they're not. On the face of it, it has been a good transfer window for Celtic, in my opinion, but there's still work to be done here. Centre back still looks like a position we're going to look to strengthen. Maybe Michut is the answer in midfield that we're looking for. But James, generally good business from Celtic so far, smart business from Celtic so far, but probably need more.
Yeah, I mean, I've expressed my skepticism is not the right word, but lack of optimization in some of them relative to Jota, in particular, but they're low risk. I mean, that's the big thing. If for a club like Celtic to spend the kind of money that they did on Carter Vickers and Jota, when we know what we're getting, they've already bought in. We know they're going to, particularly domestically, be, huge performers. So, I mean, those are good signings. Seacrest, I'm a lot more skeptical about. I don't understand that one relative to already having Hart in the squad, meaning that they profile very similarly, and that's one of the big things. We'll see if it sustains through the season, particularly in Europe. But we've gone back to Ange ball with keeper deployment so far in preseason, with Hart being way farther up. And we talked about that this time last year when we were speculating about what kind of keeper we'd bring in and how Ange deployed keepers in the past. Remember some of the journalists from Japan that would come on and say, "Yeah, wait until you see the keeper get chipped from 70 yards," which we almost saw today.
About 3 times, yeah.
Yeah. It's harder to do than it looks from that distance. But so I that one I'm perplexed about. Bernabé, I think, is slam dunk. I mean, he looks like, particularly for the value for money, it's good to see us in Argentina and in South America. So that was very encouraging. Some of the rumors, it's kind of like you never know what to do with rumors. But relative to midfield, I'm really interested to see where we prioritize. The Sousa signing to me seemed more of a quality issue over a fit necessarily. I mean, he's obviously a really good player, but I'm not sure he was an ideal fit for Celtic in our situation right now under Ange. So to me, actually, Edouard Michut would be a better fit. And he's probably not as mature in his development curve as Sousa is. But the way I think about all these things is, how is it going to make us better in the Champions League? And how is it going to make us more competitive in that venue? And I think that's, kind of the prism through which I see it. So I'd say overall positive, with, maybe not optimal with a couple of them.
If you hear some music in the background, it's because there's a massive concert going on about 2 fields down from where I am, because it's the 13th of July, so it's almost Bastille Day. So the French are celebrating, the actual culture that they have. I know there's another celebration around the 12th, 13th of July that celebrates something else, but this is real culture that's going on beside my band. But
so
I was hoping
they're not burning your caravan. Then I'm calling that culture.
No, there's no effigies. There's no effigies outside my caravan, and there's no massive fires going on. So
qualify that.
Yeah, it's a slightly different type of culture then.
Yeah, just
slightly more cultural culture.
Exactly. So look, I was hoping we'd get to talk about Jordan Larson and throw that idea around for 20 odd minutes, but it looks like that rumor has been squashed over the last number of days, which is disappointing. But Alan, look, there's an element of standing still a little bit in the Celtic transfer window so far, in the sense that there is only really one player that comes in to progress the team from where it is, and that's Bernabé at left back. But progressing it from the position that we're in can also happen with the players that we had last season.
Yeah, no, I get that, and that's obviously the brickbat that's thrown by our friends. Listen, what you got to realize is that these two, as James said, these two players are known quantities. So yes, Celtic spent a lot of money on them, but the risk is minimal. A, because of their age profile, they're both young players. B, because they're known to Celtic, the manager, they know the system, they know the other players, they know that they want to be here, that they fit in both tactically and personally in terms of the city and friends and all that stuff that's really important. And finally, they've both got a really high ceiling, right? They're nowhere near finished their development. For me, Carter Vickers was the best player in the country last season. He would have been player of the season on across all the awards. And Jota to me was the most exciting player, the most entertaining player in Scotland. And as I say, his ceiling is really high, I think, in terms of his development. So we've spent a lot of money, but bought two players that de-risk for all the reasons that I've said, and also are probably immediately worth significantly more money from an asset management perspective than the cost of what we paid for them. So I think that's all good. I think it's all really, really positive, and I was surprised and delighted that they both signed on. The other point I'd make is that we talked a lot last season about this kind of concept of system and process over personnel, right? And I certainly came to the conclusion, I think James did as well, that under Ange, the system and the process is actually more important than the personnel. Not that you could literally switch any player for any player, but actually he's been able to get players like Weston and so forth who can fit into the system and perform at a good level, probably an unexpectedly high level, because and we can get players like Starfelt, who I still don't think is an optimal player for Celtic, but his weaknesses were reduced in terms of risk by the strength and the cohesion of the system and the approach that Celtic were taking. So that I guess that another way of saying what I've just said is that another year, a year on, a full pre-season, a full set of friendlies, a full camp with Ange on the training ground with that group of players is only going to strengthen Celtic's cohesion, organisation, shape, etc., etc. And that is, I think, is going to be more value add. If you want to look at what's going to make the difference, what's going to make Celtic better, I think that will make Celtic better more than, I bought this one player or I bought that one player, right? Now, that's not to say there isn't significant work to do on the squad, and I'll come to that. I think there is still significant work to do on the squad. So if I was playing Football Manager, right, I'd probably be saying, goodbye to Julian, who I don't think wants to be here. Urugidi's never going to be a Celtic player. Mikey Johnson, Liam Shaw, Idiguchi, Ayeti, right? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 first-team players that I personally would be trying to get out, and I'd replace them with 4. I think we need another centre-back on the left side. We need a defensive midfielder. We need another 8, and we need another attacker probably on the right. And if we got 4 first-team quality players and got rid of those 6, I think we'd be in real business then. But I don't think that will happen. I think that's too much change probably for this window, but it might be something that happens over the next 2 or 3 windows, or certainly the next 2 probably. So yeah, but as I say, my main point is that I think, yes, it looks like we've not progressed a lot in terms of personnel, but I don't think that's the game changer. I think the game changer is because the way that Ange wants to play is actually really difficult to coach. Okay, so that if you think about the two most important aspects of Celtic's play is the attacking patterns. It's the relentlessness of the attack. It's the how do we create overloads in wide areas. It's the movement. It's the positioning. It's the interactions. It's the 1-2s. It's quick. The goal today, O'Reilly's goal was that in action perfectly. That's really difficult to coach. Okay, and it needs a lot of time on the training ground. Similarly, I'll go back to the Rapid Vienna game. To me, the impressive thing of that game was the intensity of the pressing. Now, we said last season we didn't think we had the right people to do it. James and I always commented that it was suboptimal. And if you look at the data at the end of season, Celtic were a less effective pressing team than the Rangers, and they don't have quite the speed and intensity. And in fact, don't even play such a high pressing game as Celtic do. We weren't as effective as them at it, but they're a very settled squad, and they've not had a lot of churn because these things take a lot of practice. Again, it's all about triggers. It's all about scenarios. It's all about when do I go? What is the scenario? What is our positioning? What's our spacing? How far away are we from each other? Are we all going at the same time? That takes communication. It takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. So Celtic are never going to be the finished article under Ange without a lot of continuity of personnel and a lot of time on the training ground. And I think that will be the benefit of this pre-season, more than saying, we should have got that midfielder or that centre-back.
Yeah. Well, look, this is obviously relative to the squad and the talent and the ability of both clubs. But I would liken Ange and the current Celtic situation with Liverpool and what Jurgen Klopp is doing. If you look at one of the frustrations with Liverpool fans is that they don't sign enough players during the season. But if you look at who they bring in, it's 1 or 2 or 3 players each at a time to replace or improve either the depth of one position or improve on the starting lineup. A couple of years ago, it was Jota that came in as Firmino's eventual replacement, and we saw how quickly he got off because he was suited to the system, and he ended up replacing Firmino a lot earlier than a lot of pundits would have reckoned. And it was the same in midfield with Thiago coming in. You know, I think he was one of maybe 2 or 3 signings Liverpool had made that summer, but he improved of where it was. So I don't really care if Celtic only make 2 signings this year, as long as those 2 signings are the 2 signings that Celtic need in order to progress and improve. I think left back is one, and they've done that with Bernabé. Centre back is probably the next one, James, or centre midfield.
Yeah. So for me, the 2 key positions, one of which looks like is not going to be addressed no matter what, were center back and at keeper. And I think that, you know, we've seen that already again in particularly the last 2 games where, you know, Alan made very important points relative to, where these teams are at in the preseason. But these teams also are an echelon below what we would face normally in, let's say, the playoff round of Europa League, like we did, you know, an Alkmaar or even a Midtjylland. These are these are teams lower. Even Rapid Vienna is a pretty good, you know, Austrian team, but they're a notch or 2 below that. And today's opponent, I'll call them the Czech team, Banik, I think he called them, were just another level down. So the issue that I'm still having is, and to Alan's point, hopefully there's improvement to be had here, but we're still persistently allowing way too many chances against this quality of opponent and higher in Europe. So again, these guys were kind of even below Bodo Glimt. So the nature with which we're having these issues are still in transition, still playing out from the back. And, you know, without having another center back who's really good on the ball, with what looks like a settled keeper situation now where we're not going to have a keeper that's good on the ball. I mean, Seacrest is even worse than Hart, and Hart is not good on the ball. So, you know, that amplifies the need within and not only amplifies the need relative to the composition of let's say the back 5, but now we're going up a level in the Champions League, and I keep going back and looking at these pots and praying for like it's like a poker player praying for the inside straight, you know, a gunshot draw, and you're hoping to pull, you know, Eintracht and maybe Donetsk and you know, so somebody else in that third pot, and you're like, my God, I mean, you could end up with Man City or Real Madrid, Liverpool, and Salzburg as your 3. I mean, it's a horrifying situation potentially relative to the quality of opposition, and that's where I keep coming back. I mean, we've struggled defending against teams well below those levels, like not even in the same neighborhood. It's preseason, everything can change, everything can improve. You know, that continues to be my major concern, is that back 5, that when you have 1 or 2 weak links relative to being on the ball, against certain level of opponents, that those problems can compound pretty severely.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we saw that to some degree with Europa League and Conference League last year, when the likes of Liam Scales came in for a game and, you know, he was caught badly in positioning. It's just the levels you go up, you need to be switched on mentally is almost as important as your ability in terms of Champions League football.
Again, we conceded 2.5 goals a game. That was the worst in Europe last season. So that suggests, now we scored, and again, that's, you know, I could see us going into or at home beating Real Madrid 5-4. I mean, it's going to be, we're going to score because of the system and because of the quality of attacking players that we have. And we saw that with Real Betis and Leverkusen last season, where these just incredibly exciting and fun games to watch. But that's a tough way to win at a high frequency against this level of opposition, the quality that we're going to be going up towards. So that's my big, you could also have the kind of games where you get a real pasting. If they get the quality of chances that, they're probably going to get. I mean, there's no scenario where we're signing Virgil van Dijk, like this version of, what I mean? Like current world-class center backs. It's not going to happen. It's just not financially viable. So every little detail matters to be able to get us to the point where we can compete at that level, and playing the way that Ange is going to want to play. I mean, think about, Joe Hart being 40 yards from goal against Man City. I mean, with Kevin De Bruyne getting that ball today, you know what I mean? It's like, that's just a different kettle of fish. And that's the challenge that we face. So that's where my anxiety resides. It's not domestically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're going to be fine domestically.
Yeah, I know we need a new centre back, and I know we need a new centre midfielder. But when I saw that Liam Delap was available from Man City today, a part of me was just like, come on, we have to go for him. He's supposed to be genuine. I've seen a couple of underage games. I've spoken to people in Man City who are involved in coaching, and they say he's absolutely next level stuff. He's going to be a Premier League striker. So be interesting to see if you see a few rumours flying now with Celtic interested in bringing in Liam Delap as a striker, considering maybe Celtic are in the market for another forward player. But we'll wait and see. We'll get into some of the questions because they kind of relate to transfers anyway here, Alan. One question that came in on Twitter from Martin McGuigan was that if we do sign an athletic centre midfielder, like he puts in brackets like Sousa, it's not going to be Sousa, but like him, assuming they play in the Champions League games, who are the two other midfielders for you?
Yeah, I think in Europe, in that situation, we may play more of a two double pivot than just three out and out, midfielders in that sense. So it would be McGregor and a new person, and then one of Turnbull and O'Reilly, I would suggest in that scenario. Now, again, domestically, it will be pick and choose, I think, and there'll be a rotation, etc. But I think for the big European games, that would be the thinking.
Mm-hmm. It's got to be O'Reilly for me if it's a choice, just for the brazen good looks in that away jersey.
Well, I think Alan makes a great point. So that was the other part of the Sousa rumor that I found interesting, was that he really didn't profile as a single pivot defensive midfielder in a 4-3-3 in an Ange system. So that was when I made the comments earlier, it was within that context. I actually wrote something about this at the time, is that it would make more sense if we were going to transition to play more 4-2-3-1, which he played a lot at Marinos in Japan. And that seemed to be, kind of the two systems or setups, not systems, but, setups that he would go back and forth between. And we almost, we saw it very selectively, particularly in some European games or some games to lock down late. Alan would comment on those games, bringing in McCarthy and putting him next to somebody like McGregor or even Soro at times, so we did do it very selectively. But so it wouldn't surprise me if that ends up being part of the mix, and it would certainly be within the norms of how he has managed things in the past as well. So I think that opens up kind of the opportunity set as far as what kind of player, and could you see an Itaguchi next to McGregor in Champions League playing a 4-2-3-1? Yeah, I'm just saying it wouldn't be my ideal situation, but how do you structure it to be a little bit more defensive, even within the context of still playing a very aggressive style of play, which is, I think, the base case.
Yeah, you've sort of answered this already on Twitter, Alan, but Paul Kennedy asks, do you reckon Maeda's lack of technical proficiency is a hindrance to the team, despite the fact that I signed him for the system. I will double that up with the interesting quote from Maeda himself, saying that he didn't make the most of his pace last season, and he wants to show that again this season. I mean, honest to God, if that's Maeda not making the most of his pace, I genuinely worry for what he's going to do to some Scottish teams especially. But on the other side, that could be incredibly exciting in Europe as well.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't see Maeda in isolation. I agree that he's not particularly a creative player. His technical ability isn't his standout attribute by any shape. I think he's probably quite good at playing whatever he does it if he does it quickly. The more time he has on the ball to try and work out or to do a trick, I don't think that's his game at all. So, but what I think is important is if you look at the combination of the front three. So if you've got a front three of Kyogo or Giakoumakis through the middle, and then Maeda and Jota, that's a great balance that you've got to your attack. You know, you're stretching with pace. You're also got in Jota, you've got someone who's going to take the ball and try and beat you, or maybe put in an early cross or try a trick. With Maeda, you're looking all over the place. Where's he going? Where's he going? Where's he going? Jota can be like having another number 10 to slide the ball through it as well. So I think it's that combination. And like if you had Maeda and Forrest, for example, I think we would hit a brick wall, frankly, against a really good side. We just wouldn't be able to break them down. But a Maeda and a Jota, you've got that mixture between, you know, getting a yard through ability and technique and tricks, and you've got that ability to stretch through sheer pace and movement. And it's that combination, I think, that makes Celtic a difficult team to defend against.
Mm-hmm. I'd add to that I think to Alan's prior points on the pressing and the improvement on pressing, I think addressing those issues and getting significantly better could be a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of situation, meaning that Maeda without cohesive pressing can look like a headless chicken a little bit, meaning that he's so fast and aggressive in his pressing, but that can also result in being bypassed pretty easily at times, meaning that you go hell-bent going in at a guy if what's behind him is not really coordinated to keep that pressure on, then it makes the press break down quite easily, actually. And I think we saw that quite a bit at times after his arrival. So if what's going on behind him improves, I think that what he's really good at could get amplified quite a bit and really ramp up and ratchet up the effectiveness of the pressing and the counter pressing. So I hope that's the case, meaning that those improvements are going to kind of unleash him as opposed to almost at times, particularly again against a Bodo Glimt, somebody like that who's able to, they're not wetting their pants when they see a Maeda running at them. As you might get some of the guys in Scotland who are like, oh my God, they're not used to that level of intensity and don't have the patterns of play and the confidence on the ball like you get against a team like, Bodo. So, so that's an area that I'm anxious to see and relatively optimistic.
Yeah, I remember when, United were in their Ragnick situation and they were, trying to press, but press
with Ronaldo,
doing it really, really badly. And Gary Neville's analysis, one of his analysis was that the only thing worse than a team not pressing at all is a team pressing badly. And that it was because the likes of Bruno, and I remember Damien Delaney, who used to play for Crystal Palace, he did a lot of punditry with us in Off the Ball. He was talking about it and how he saw that as almost fake work. So he would do run straight at a player. It looks like he's doing really good work, but it's not, because it's completely upsetting the entire tactical system.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Maeda does that, but he could have a tendency to do that. And if you add Hatate in there, who did it quite often as well, you're seeing players who, if they're bypassed, boom, that's two players out of the game straight away. And the likes of Liverpool, PSG, Real Madrid, Juventus, all the teams that Celtic will be playing against in the Champions League are able to do that. So you just need to be smart about the way that you do it and do it correctly. So hopefully Maeda does do it and does do it very well next season. We'll wait and see. Just finally, before we finish up, this is a kind of a big question, so I don't know why I left it to last, but one question coming in from Omaha Celtic. I want to just specify it a little bit. He asks, what tactical changes do you see Ange making to freshen up the team in season number 2? I'm going to sort of enhance that a little bit and say, do you think Ange will play a 4-2-3-1 this season, given that he has done it in previous years under his different teams?
I think he will, or he might. It depends on who we recruit. In terms of European games, I don't think he will just for run-of-the-mill league games, because that would be too defensive, and he will want to be on the front foot. I don't think we'll see massive tactical switches or changes to the way Celtic play. As I said earlier, to me, it's going to be about doing the things better that we saw glimpses of last season, especially the attacking patterns. So if you think about that first half in the February derby game, and the way that we're able to overload the fullback areas, you think of doing that more consistently and better. And then think of the pressing. Again, go back to that Rapid game, watch that back, look at the intensity of the pressing, how it was more coordinated, how players were responding to the triggers. I think those are the two things, because as I keep saying, they're difficult to coach. It takes time. It takes players to practice it a lot on the training ground. It takes a lot of communication, etc., etc. So those are the two things I would look for to see. Have we stepped up? How are we getting better at those things?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, when you watch games off the ball and you see runs that guys are making and the movement, and I've even noticed that already in the 3 preseason games. I mean, it really does look impressive. The guys running off the ball, the coordination of the movement, and the next step of that, and we talked about this last season, is you got to have people that are deep to hit these runners, and that are both willing and able to make certain kinds of passes, even whether it's over the top through the channel or, kind of these more intricate patterns of play that rip teams open, even with the wide overload. So I think we're starting to see more and more of it, and I think they'll get better at it. The only other thing that, I mentioned already is how the keeper is deployed, and whether that is truly an quote unquote Ange keeper, like he had in Japan, where they're way far out and part of the buildup as almost an extra center back. And I have really mixed feelings on that, given who the two keepers are that are likely to play the most. So I think that'll be really interesting. It looks like he's trying it. And we did a little bit after Hart arrived last season, and then he quickly got away from it. So it looks like he's given it a shot for a little bit longer this preseason, and it'll be interesting to see if he persists with it as we go into the games that actually count.
Yeah, I think the point you make there about how far up Celtic play is an interesting one, because we saw last year, in the what would you call it? The period the Celtic struggled, even though, they weren't really losing games, they were just not getting wins. One of the issues was that teams were sitting so deep and Celtic were playing so far up that there was literally no space in the final third to play into. It was, you wanted Celtic just to take a step 5 yards back so that the space would open up for the runners. But eventually it came to be fixed. So, hopefully that is something that is worked on over the preseason. I will be interested to see that keeper situation. I can't see it happening either in the Scottish League or especially not in the Champions League, depending on who Celtic get. But anything else that we want to cover now before we finish up for the first episode of the year?
It's just great to be back. Get back into the routine. It's a long 6 to 8 weeks there. So as much as it's enjoyable to get some R&R and go on vacation, that kind of stuff, or live a vacation like some people do, and I don't know who's doing that, but it's just great to be back.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for all the questions, by the way. It's been good. I think it was a shame we didn't get to all of them, because I think there's some really good ones.
Yeah, we'll get to a good few now. Like, preseason's great because you can chat through a lot of big topics that you don't usually get to in the usual churn of the week to week and game to game situation. And with the Champions League, it's going to be even more hectic this season. So it's within reason that you've got your big pay package for this year, because Obviously, there's going to be a little bit more work going on over the next couple of weeks. But look, it is great to be back. The Huddle Breakdown is going to be with you for the season coming, and hopefully over the next week we'll try to get some sort of regular-ish schedule. As you can imagine, it's not the easiest to organize when I'm in a camper van.
I think you owe us and the listeners now. Let's hear the pending itinerary of Enda Cole travels. So where are we off to next? Where are we going to be broadcasting from over the next few weeks?
So I'm in Lyon now for Bastille Day, so that's tomorrow. Then at the weekend I'll be heading towards the Alps, I'd imagine, probably in the shadow of Mont Blanc for a couple of days, and then into Turin. We're going into our Italy stint then over the next month or so. So Turin is the first spot for our Italy travels, and then we're kind of working our way across Turin to Milan, to Verona, to Venice, and then back up the Amalfi Coast and back into France before back to Ireland in the next couple of probably mid-September, I'd say.
Impressive. Crikey.
So you're not going to the south of Italy. You're going to stay in the north, closer to the.
Oh no, I'll go to the south. Yeah, no, I'll go.
But you're going all the way down Italy. Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be fun. It'll be hectic trying to do all this. But look, that's the dedication I have to this show.
Go steady on that wine. It's more than a marathon. Definitely not a sprint.
That's it. Anyway, guys, it's been great to be back for episode 1 of season 3 of the Huddle Breakdown. Hard to believe that we've been doing this this is going to be our 3rd year doing it this season. So hopefully everyone in the comments enjoyed the first show. And if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, it'll be on the YouTube all year round, and you'll be able to get it on podcast as well. So until next week, Alan, James, thanks very much.
All right, guys.
Thanks. Take care.
All right, we'll chat to you later. Good luck.